This is one of the last plays of Shakespeare, and it is glorious because it combines Romeo and Juliet with Richard III, with Midsummer Night's Dream. It is his revenge stories, his comedies, his love stories, all rolled into one. It's kind of the final, perfect Shakespeare. And one of the lines in this story, which I think is so beautifully profound, is, "We are such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded with a sleep." We put together these stories and we wind them around our lives, and we bring something to other people, whether it moves them, entertains them, or just takes their mind off of the tempest and turmoil that they live every day. That's our job.
In this economic climate, certainly in this cultural climate, to be able to make a story like this is somehow miraculous.
I know that when I look back on it, it will be, you know, one of the most important experiences of my life.
Here's the cool thing about a Julie Taymor film, is it all sounds like it's doable, but a lot of it hasn't been done yet. There is, and I'm going to use this word, but you can't tell anybody, there's an experimental quality to what we're doing, which is crazy. In the film world, we don't do experimental. We don't head into things that we don't know exactly how they're going to turn out.
The idea is from the first shot, it's a believable castle, and then the zoom out is in a girl's hand. We thought first gelatin was the key, but it has to dissolve in her hand during a storm.
See it dripping in her face.
We tried sugar, but it just doesn't dissolve. We couldn't use any special acids or anything because we've got an actress's skin to deal with. So after all those things, it just turned out that freezing it and using ice as the binder was the best solution. You're gonna be a star, aren't you? You're gonna be a little movie star.
But how do we get the thing to melt faster than that?
Oh, we're going to thaw them out under the lights a little bit.
Okay.
I know you wanted to go faster.
We have rain imminently coming in. Of course, we have rain in the shot, but we're such control freaks, we like to control the rain.
We got 2 left. We haven't had ultimate success yet.
And it's terrifying to not know if it's going to work. I guess it's like skydiving, hoping that the parachute part of it happens. And then when it does, it's extremely exhilarating.
The theme of The Tempest is nature versus nurture. It's not only in the story, but it's also in the way that I worked and in what my collaborators did, which is absolute nature, the beauty of the real landscapes, the visceral feel of the sand and the elements in the sun and the rain, and then mix in abstract, three-dimensional paintings right there in real landscapes.
It's a myth in a way, in that the characters are representational rather than completely realistic. So you can't come to The Tempest with a traditional idea of what a film might be about. You've kind of got to see it on a slightly more epic scale.
It has this fantastic contrast between good and evil, between the real world and the magic world. You know, it's all about controlling the world, controlling nature.
And the winds and the rain and whatever we have, it's going to play in every day, because the magic of Prospero, we don't know what's going to come and go. So we have to flow with whatever that is. It will continue to be challenging, but hopefully we'll have a good time in the running of it. So mahalo, thank you, and onward. In 1986, Jeffrey Horowitz of Theater for New Audience came to me and said, "You should do some Shakespeare." I was slightly intimidated by the language. I had acted in Shakespeare. I played Kate in The Taming of the Shrew in college, but I was always a visual director and I just wasn't sure that I could do it. And he said, "Yes, you can, because the language of Shakespeare is incredibly visual." And I fell in love with the play. But I did it the first time very minimalistically, just a black, volcanic sand rake. And oddly enough, the film, 24 years later, has a lot of the same ideas that I came to, only I set it in a real environment. We have Miranda running over all the territories: black sand, black lava rocks, red earth, green forest. Seven or 8 years ago, I was on the island of Lanai in Hawaii, and I walked on these incredible red desert landscapes and these giant cliffs and the various forests, and on the big island, these volcanic black rock landscapes. It looks like some supernatural event happened there. I went, this is the island of the Tempest.
I called the film commissioner and they said, no, you can't film on Lanai. It's privately owned. I contacted the owner of the island. It turns out that he's a huge Shakespeare fan, and so he allowed us to film on his island.
Lanai is a challenge. It's a remote island. There's basically 2 hotels, and we had to ship everything here.
I mean, every needle, every pin.
We had to use daylight, natural light. We had to stop when it got dark. We couldn't, when we were out there on these dunes and these cliffs, we couldn't carry all these lights.
Some of the roads are not, exactly paved.
Our yellow van got stuck, and the Val got stuck behind us last night at 11 o'clock.
Yesterday we were in sandstorms and wind, and there was fires on the island.
A brush fire that's of rather large proportion, burning on both sides of the road that we were supposed to travel in the morning.
To move everyone from the hotels. Helen Mirren actually conjured up a storm for us for a little while.
Yeah, it's raining. It's raining, but maybe not for long.
Can we stop?
We got lightning. It's all lightning.
And that's the big trouble with shooting outdoors with no cover sets. No time, that we just have to shoot anyway.
It's day 2, it's raining, it's a disaster. The show's on the floor, we're doomed.
I pray you would lift this sky and open it up, Father God. Hallelujah, have a good show and good day.
Day 4, we're here on the cliff face. It's going well.
I'm understanding now your goal here was to make a movie in the most extreme locations as possible.
I wanted it to be so difficult.
It was worth it. This is a side of Hawaii that few really have had a chance to see, and that's going to be a treat to the audience.
Look at this. Isn't this not gorgeous?
Yeah.
Just look at that stuff. But no artist can achieve what nature does by itself, right? Through its own rage. We just randomly today, because it's just so extraordinary, had the court walking down this black lava rock with these fireworks of exploding waves behind them.
This is once in a blue moon. You can't plan this sort of stuff.
No, because it was never this wild when I've been here. Cut.
That was good, thank you.
That was good.
It was planned by me.
I was just standing on the rocks, looking at the ocean and thinking of some lines I have, and you that on the sands with printless foot do chase the ebbing Neptune and then do fly him when he comes back. In other words, the little spirit that run after the waves and then run back to avoid the waves when Neptune, the king of the sea, pushes the waves back on shore. And watching these incredible waves here, you can just, those lines absolutely come to life.
There's an area which is known as the Garden of the Gods. I've never felt so close to the origins of the planet as I did there.
I'm here in Lanai, I think it's called, doing a bit of acting, called the Garden of the Gods. Not seen any gods yet, people mostly. Depends what your religious beliefs are, of course. Some say that God is within us all. Oh, the Hawaiians always felt the success to any venture was the spiritual connection that is made. And so we're here to make that connection with all of you.
The rawness and the violence of the nature here, it's fantastical, it's primeval, that is just extraordinary for the play. I can't imagine any corner of the earth that would be more perfect.
When you're performing The Tempest on stage, you kind of have to imagine the storm, and then when you're shooting, you're in it.
We also had enormous amounts of visual effects to do, and we didn't have a big budget.
There was a moment at which this Tempest was not to have a Tempest, where we were going to build a boat, put it on a gimbal, shoot it in a tank, the way that kind of stuff is often done. It was expensive, and we didn't have a lot of resources.
Which always, I think, makes you more creative.
Once this set moved to Hawaii, I was able to hook up with some very crafty people there. Actually, the prop guy who helped me figure this out started on Hawaii 5-0, which won me over completely. Richard Drake, he did a brilliant job and came up with an idea of building a very small set using reclaimed wood on a raft that we built. It had just this giant PVC pipes that you could buy, that actually we did buy at Home Depot, strapped into the bottom, and we ended up with a very tippy set.
Too many people on there, the whole thing starts to move around, it'll end up in the air and probably sink. So let's keep it to 14.
We almost capsized the boat on our first tip with the big waves. Everybody was very excited because we were finally doing an action picture. It was the last day in Hawaii.
Water coming.
What I learned, this being my first shipwreck, what you really need is a lot of rope.
We're gonna send 300 gallons of water through some windows.
I wasn't quite sure what actor I really wanted to do it with. And I went, really, if Prospero were Prospero, does it work?
I did see it maybe 4 years ago, and as I was watching it, I thought this could be played by a woman quite easily. You wouldn't really have to change very much in the play.
And I ran into Helen. I was thinking about it already.
Out of the back of my mind, I remembered, you know, watching The Tempest and thinking a woman could do that.
She actually said to me, you know, I could play Prospero. And I went, do you want to?
But I always imagined that we'd be doing it in the theatre.
I went, no, in the film.
I never kind of expected that.
It was just this magical moment that happened. The next step was, is this a trick? Is this a gimmick? It can't be a gimmick. It has to work. So we decided to do a reading, and obviously we changed all the he's to she's and the lords to mum. But some of the words are hard to change. For instance, master does not become mistress. It just, we don't have a word for female that is equivalent to master. So master stayed master. But the main change that we had to do was the backstory.
Julie's idea was to animate this moment, to turn it into this stylized series of flashbacks, the Milan sequence. So we started simply with this idea that we would shoot behind plastic. And then, in the way that sort of Julie's process works, we added a layer behind that, and we thought maybe we'd print onto plastic some sort of scenery and see if that worked. And as it developed as an idea, it became clear that what we were really going to end up doing was building models, fantastical models that were forced perspective and skewed and twisted and tortured. And from those models, we would shoot plates, and we would take our actors and we would shoot them on the green screen and put them inside the model so that they could actually live inside these spaces. It was a nice blend, sort of old-fashioned, handmade worlds, marrying a kind of a high-tech compositing technique.
Well, in our version, Prospera was the wife of the Duke of Milan, who was very liberal and very supportive of her studies. But in this era, women were not really allowed to study the sciences, the dark sciences, the white sciences, alchemy. So upon the death of her husband, she became the Duke, which is also a possibility. Women were dukes. And her younger brother, finding this an opportunity, had her convicted of witchcraft. And she's put on this bark with her daughter and shipped off. Of course, they end up on this island, and 12 years later, the events happen.
I think it becomes more of a thing that was done to her gender as much as her person.
She always harbors that within her. It's a whole nother way of understanding it. It's not the old man on the island with the young daughter. This is someone who's really got something to fight for.
She's an angry person. She's a bitter person at the beginning of the play. And you don't want to put anger and magic together. You know, that's a rather toxic mix.
There's a primal scream, and Julie and I were saying, we can't have a scream, it's too expected.
So we heightened and abstracted Helen's voice into a kind of Coltrane-esque saxophone scream.
We can relate to a mad jazz player. It's the type of things we were looking for, to throw one off kilter, yet achieve the same dramatic role.
You know, as they say, beware of what you want because you get it. And when I realized that we were actually going to make this film, of course, I got absolutely terrified and thought, you are crazy. What do you think you're doing? You're never going to be able to do that. I was very, very nervous coming into it. As a woman playing a man's role, I didn't want all the guys to be looking at me going, oh, God, she can't do it, can she? But they were very, very supportive of me and generous, extremely generous.
It's always so great when someone you've admired is as great as you would have hoped them to be. She's just tremendous. She's got this kind of youthful energy, and she's incredibly professional and fun. She doesn't take things too seriously.
I mean, I would like to be much closer to you.
She's a trooper. I don't see any fear in her. Just a lot of power.
Helen is playing Prospera as a simmering volcano. That's what's there. She is the energy, the magic energy, and the rage and everything that's boiling up is all being contained. And at a certain point, of course, it explodes. What I love to do is to use the metaphor of the character as the jumping off point for the character's costume. So it's pieces that move down this giant robe as if she is literally the shape of a volcano.
That was the biggest challenge of all. It was Prospera's magic cloak, and there's something about having to design a magic cloak that has to sort of summon up everything, be the essence of who Prospera is. Quite a terrifying thing to do. The cloak was described in the script as being made from shards of glass and light. But Julie really wanted natural-looking glass, more like crystal, the obsidian glass, which is black. The cloak is actually made from quite lightweight vacuum-formed plastic. There are about 4 or 5 basic shapes that were cast, and then 3,000 or so shapes made from each of those pieces in various colors, and then each one sewn on by hand, like the sequins on a ball gown.
She has this feeling that there's a lava flow in the design of this raw, rough fabrics that are put together.
And a lot of the influence for that was Japanese fashion, actually.
What ho! Slave! Caliban!
What appeared to me is the fact that it was such a challenging piece, and anything that was Shakespearean. And this is my 3rd or 4th language, but being born in Africa, been raised in France, and then living in America, it's an attribute of Caliban. It reflects a little bit in my own life, you know.
And I said, you know, Prospero is Prospera. It's a woman of Helen Mirren's age who is going to be able to control you with her staff. You are clearly more muscular, stronger. You could swat her with your hand and she'd be out, but she has the power because she's a sorceress.
Coming from a place like Africa, you know, I've seen a lot of women in that sort of a setting.
And then he proceeded to tell these incredible stories of witchcraft and sorcery that he himself had experienced. But you have to snap out of it, yeah? How do you get her curse off of you?
You know, I'll go back to my culture.
Yes, please.
When she stops, she cancels it.
She
cancels it.
It's so important that this actor didn't have a problem playing with Helen, playing with this Prospera, because he knew that there was a reality to that.
Then breaks out and said, "This island is mine! Thy cigarette's my mother, which thou takest from me." You know, it's like somebody knock on your, at your door and in your house and say, "Oh, that's a nice house. Oh, great. Okay. Now this is what you're gonna do, and this is what you're gonna become, and clean this for me, clean that for me, and this is my home now, you know." And that's part of my passion in wanting to portray Caliban.
Cut.
Camera's cut, thank you.
One more time.
One more time. Yeah. Shakespeare is writing about the New World, and he is writing about colonialization.
This was a society within which slavery was pretty well accepted.
In my original theater version, I used a big mask over the head of Caliban, like a mudman from New Guinea. He just had 2 eye holes and a mouth hole and ear holes. Well, as I was not going to cover Djimon Hounsou's face, I had to reconceive the part of Caliban. In this version of Caliban, it's not that he's just a native from that island. I had, in my concept for Caliban, made him also the moon calf, the monster that he is conceived at. He's slightly surreal, the image of moon and calf. He's got these splotches like a calf of white skin and black skin. We made the black part of his skin blue-black. It's literally fossilized skin with pieces of volcano and old shells in it.
That this boy was born and half of his body was somewhat eaten by lava.
He has nature in him.
You know, he is the land.
He has the one blue eye from his mother, who's the blue-eyed hag Sycorax. He's got webbing between his fingers and long fingernails that can dig the pig nuts. And he says to Prospera, "You taught me language."
You taught me language.
And my prophet is, I know how to curse the Red Plague. Rage you for learning me your language.
So in his body are carved Elizabethan swear words all over his body, and they are raised scars.
Makeup call, 4 a.m. See you there.
It's not funny.
It's true.
It's not funny.
It's true, Jaimin.
I know, I know.
It's
Just when you said it, I was like, oh, this looks so exciting. And all of a sudden,
Oh, yeah, it
4 o'clock, 3:30 in the morning.
No, we'll see. We'll see. We'll try and
We'll
make
be
it
there
under
about
2 hours.
7.
When we first started, it was about 4 hours, because it's pretty long, but we've gotten it down to a good 3 hours now. That's 3 hours with 3 people working pretty much nonstop.
It was difficult to remove myself from the hours of makeup every other day, no matter how composed you were coming in. By the end of the makeup session, you're on edge.
A lot of upkeep on this makeup, just making sure it looks good. It's a lot of poking and prodding all day long. He's got slip-on feet that we put on him, you know, for full body shots, but Jaimin's a real sport. Because he has to put up with a lot.
You have to go and torture him, you know, put more glue on Jaimin. He likes it when I put glue on him.
There's nothing about it that was comfortable. Once you're done, you gotta take 2 hours to take it off. It was a lot.
So I'll see you later.
See you later.
Might as well kiss the clay, right?
You're right.
The whole thing.
But I'm so glad that I went through the experience. I'm so glad that I challenged myself in, you know, doing a Shakespearean piece.
Task Ariel! And in the theater, when I did The Tempest, and my Prospero was a man, my Ariel was a woman. Ariel is a spirit. How do you make a woman, a live actor, be a spirit? A human actor can't rise up, fly around, move around, isn't transparent. In the theater, I solved this by having a mask that was held in the right hand of the actor, and her left hand had a white hand with extended fingers, but the rest of her costume, including her face, was covered in black, in the bunraku style of hiding the actor. And so you just had this head and this human hand and a little piece of silk that gave life. But it allowed that head to land on the shoulder of Prospero, on the foot of Prospero, to fly in the air.
I come to answer thy best pleasure.
Be it to fly, to swim, to dive into the fire. I knew I couldn't do this in the film, because in the film I wanted to have the benefit of the real human actor and the facial expressions and the nuances that an actor can give.
Is there more toil?
And Ben Wishoff fit the bill. He's almost rock and roll, like little Keith Richards in there. Just, to be exact, he looks like an Egon Schiele painting. He's very thin and had the humor, and if you just saw him as an actor in rehearsal, the sensual and sexual tension between this young, in his 20s actor and Helen was really cool.
Confine thee into a cloven tide, within which rift, imprisoned, thou didst painfully remain a dozen years.
We were rehearsing in London because I had to see what would be the natural relationship. When would they have physical contact? What would be those human moments? Because, of course, Shakespeare writes a spirit with unbelievable human emotions.
Do you love me, Master? No? Dearly, my delicate Ariel.
Does he really mean, do you love me? Or is love so strange? Do you love me, Master? I mean, is that what it is?
Do you love me, Mum?
Do that again. But right at the beginning when I asked Ben, he'd been working all year, and he said, I can't go to Hawaii when you're shooting. I'm free in January. And I thought to myself, can I do this without him on location? But if he's on location, what am I going to do with him? He's just going to be standing on a cliff or standing on a sandbar or in the water. So I decided that that limitation would actually be a virtue.
Ariel! What would my place, Master? Here I am.
And with Helen, in rehearsal, we would use a tennis ball on a stick. And I'd say, Helen, I'll just move the tennis ball anywhere, and you just watch it.
Do you love me, Master? No?
I
think we have a new concept for Ariel.
I was getting into it. Yeah. Then I dispensed with the tennis ball and said, Helen, wherever you look, I'm not going to worry. You focus, you look up there. Later, with green screen, I'll make Ariel be there. So we allowed tremendous freedom with her ability to look like this or look around, and I would know later we would have to make Ariel move. So there was a lot of complications.
Uh-oh, how's Ariel going to leave?
He doesn't have to leave. Why does he have to leave? He's going to be here in a minute.
Major cost in visual effects of his styles. We must get rid of him.
Brave spirit!
And one of my favorite scenes is the two of them in a two-shot. He looks like he's underwater. This technique was developed by a wonderful photographer, Brian Oglesby, whose photographs I had seen in a magazine on the airplane. I called him up and I asked him if he would collaborate with us. We had a giant piece of glass that had about 2 or 3 inches of water. The glass had a frame and it was floating.
That's beautiful. Look, when she just disappeared into darkness.
Yeah. And we had a rear projection screen at an angle over the glass, projecting skies or trees or nature that would make a reflection on the water. And we put the real actor underneath and light him. And Helen was not very comfortable, but she was on a diving board with her face over the water, and we could be in a two-shot over her shoulder. And what that allowed was that the refractions of the water would break up Ben's face. And he looked like he was not real, that he was made of elements. So what Shakespeare suggested, I just did. He was the director. He said, this is what Ariel can do. And frankly, Shakespeare wrote a visual effects piece. A lot of this we did with makeup and props. The harpy, he's completely black teeth and giant black wings, and he looks like he's made of oil. And then we made these legs for the harpy, and the lower part of his body is buried in a mountain of shards of glass. And then we were able, with green screen behind, to make more and more of him and have lots of harpies.
You are 3 men of sin.
The visual effects are very, very unusual. They're not slick, but they are magical in that sense. I mean, dogs made of lava, and how we did it, you know, we had to really find that way.
Action!
So it comes! When they're in that place.
Kyle has worked with me on Titus. He did brilliant work on Across the Universe. And I always wanted a painterly, abstract quality. It's a combination of high expressionistic style, like the early movies of Méliès or Murnau and Lumière, and what filmgoers expect now, which makes them feel like, my God, this is really happening.
I boarded the King's ship. Now in the beak, now in the waist, the deck. In every cabin, I flamed amazement.
On a 17th century ship, you hear electric guitars, heavy metal bass approaches. It takes you out of the quote-unquote usual Shakespearean context of hearing something orchestral. It's always throwing a wrench into something, messing with our response to specificity of time.
The other thing that would tell you a bit about period would be what Mark Friedberg did with the only interiors.
We decided that Prospero's world would be invented, as if it's set on that island, but outside of the realm of reality that most of the rest of the story takes place in. So we had the black lava, we had this red volcanic landscape and this red dirt and white coral. From those elements, we created an entirely modern structure for her to live in.
But the actual cave walls were like an open book.
Hopefully it gives the sense that through Prosper's alchemy, she affected the landscape to take on this shape rather than she built it.
Looks like a foul bombard that would shed his liquor.
And then, I know not where to hide my head. John Saint, you know, you've got to make that connection.
All right. I know not where I'd hide me head. Yon Saint Cloud cannot choose before
That's right.
You
exactly.
bastard!
That's what it has to be.
Oh, yon Saint Cloud!
Shakespeare was a genius
So within the language, there's a kind of poetry that moves you closer to maybe God, if there is a God, and if not God, a unifying spirit that is within us all, that is achieved through high art, where we recognise the things that are beautiful and eternal.
In this scene, I play Henry V. In this scene, I play the Moor, consumed by jealousy, with Iago constantly turning him against his beloved Desdemona. Finally, he murders her. In this scene, I, Mark Antony, furious at the death of my beloved Caesar, impeach the crowd to revolt against the tyrannical conspirators Brutus et al. In this scene, I'm an overreaching Scottish thane with an ambitious wife, pushing me on and on to ever more treacherous crimes.
Hold on, wait.
In this scene, I play Mercutio. I play the Dane, unable to commit to a decision, but furious with my uncle Claudius. In this scene, I play Sherlock, a racist, anti-Semitic, stereotype Jew who wants to trick Lorenzo out of a pound of flesh. I'm going to keep it in there.
Russell's an incredibly exciting talent, but who's only done one acted film before. But he's a great performer, so he understands the process of performance really well.
Though you have to be vocal and has energy, it still has to be talking to oneself.
It's really hard, that, because
it's hard, I know.
Of all the lines in this, this is the line that is most blatantly to the audience.
People out there who doesn't exist?
Yeah, because this is what I'm thinking. It's like, where so far have we seen that this is a court jester? Nowhere, really. Like, all that is just, oh, I'm angry, I hate it here, this pisses me off. This is the best bit for me to go, hello, welcome to the court of da-da-da. It's like, you know, like, I am a court jester.
He is a court jester. You're supposed to be outrageous. You're supposed to, no one is too sacred to make fun of. That's what the character is, and that's what Russell is.
On this shoot, Julie Taymor, Helen Mirren, barely a moment passes without me developing either an erection or an Oedipus complex. Sometimes simultaneously.
Trinket is actually a nickname because I'm in love of trinkets, of brightly coloured things, objects, objets d'art, anything really, anything that twinkles, sparkles, anything that a magpie might light its claw upon, that's where you'll find me. If I see something sparkly, even the glint in an eye of a fair maiden, I'm on it.
In all my work, I deal with improvisation because it liberates the actor. The actor takes the essence of what his character is about, they take the story, and then they improvise the words. And that means that when they come back to the Shakespeare, they understand the subtext. They're able to make it their own. That moment of when you realize what a prize this could be.
I would be rolling in it. I'd make a fortune out of this. Look at him. It's beautiful, disgusting, gorgeous, sexy, weird thing.
And then the kind of cynicism about what does make money.
I mean, anything make a millionaire there. If it's freaky, weird, disgusting, they eat that shit up with a spoon. They love it. They can't get enough freaky, oddity, weird, suppressed sexual perverts. Anything that represents the inner filth they feel within themselves, the perversions made flesh, they love it. I mean, forget it if you're broke, if you're down on your luck, if you're coughing up blood in a gutter, if you're spluttering and alone and desperate, don't look round for help. But, you know, a fetus in a jar, they'll hand over their life savings.
I was willing to actually let Russell improvise because probably in Shakespeare's day, the actors who played those roles improvised. It's like commedia dell'arte.
Stefano, is that you? Stefano, if that's you, it's me.
Just stay out of the mouth, Is that your arsehole calling my name out?
But Russell ultimately didn't want to do that. He really wanted to do the text as written.
Because sometimes his words are quite good, I think.
I think
He's
so.
got way with language, that fella. I don't know why no one's picked up on it.
And I think that he was able to marry those two experiences together.
What about leg?
No.
Like a man?
Oh, come on.
Free joke. Free joke for nothing. You've already paid me.
It's really good, that rehearsal period, because you don't often get it in films. So I spent that rehearsal period just trying to avoid rehearsing, looking out of windows, stretching chewing gum as long as you can stretch it, then imagining it was a line of energy between two planets that are one day destined to clash, but there'll be lovers on each planet when they meet. For that brief split second, they fall in love, and that would be the consummation. That's mostly what I got from the rehearsal process, a sort of cosmic romance.
So you lost more buttons? Or?
This is consistent.
Oh.
The Trinculo costume was one of the first that I did because I kind of knew immediately what I wanted to do and how it should look, and obviously it helped knowing who the actor was, having Russell play Trinculo. His physicality really played a big part in what I ended up designing for him.
Sort of tailcoats, stripes and patterns, tight pants, striped pants that are kind of his style. I jumped off of Russell's persona.
It's lovely, eh?
It's fantastic.
It's quite a get-up.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm into it.
Russell's teeth! No, let it go, let it go. Don't let his teeth go in the ocean.
Are you trying to do? We gave him some really hideous teeth. He was too cute without it.
Look at my teeth. I have to wear these teeth in it. So that's like surprising, because I don't think they're different enough that people are going to go, ooh, they're costume teeth. People are just going to think he's got manky old British teeth. Well, they're cosy teeth, all right? I've got proper Hollywood smile, yeah? Not them Ricky Gervais inward inclining gnashers. Look at that, leading man teeth, them. You can stake your life on them. I'll chew through anyone. Scarlett Johansson, Natalie Portman, sling them all in this direction. I'll chomp them right up.
And then wonderful Alfred Molina is wearing pants that are too small for him, his belly's too big for him, he's wearing a slimy t-shirt.
Shakespeare was very specific where the songs went. And there were 5 songs in this play. The act of singing live on stage, coming out and doing a whole song was part of the Tempest experience. Sometimes they're almost a thumbnail sketch of a character. When Stefano appears, he sings a bawdy, a shipman's song, and in about 4 bars, you get the whole character.
At one point, someone says, oh, is this not Stefano, my drunken butler? You know, if you're a butler, you're halfway between upstairs and downstairs. Downstairs, you are the king, you are the boss. You're like in the middle of the two worlds, and there's a great amount of room for pretentiousness and getting ideas above your station.
Yeah.
As the story progresses, that maybe Stefano, part of the irritation is that he's trying to kind of upmarket himself. I think we'll have the Chardonnay tonight. Shut up!
That's what I like, yeah.
He's one of them old-style English actors full of anecdotes and stories about anything. Wait till you get him in here, he'll regale you with his charm and tell some sort of story, and you think, well, how's this relevant? How's he coming up with some talk about a meal he had in Tuscany once, or someone in a rollerblade accident on Venice Beach? Everything sparkles and whiz-bangs with him, then the cameras go on, suddenly, nothing, boring. No, of course not, that's when he truly comes to life. I feel like I learned to act at his teat. Not physically, that would be weird, because men don't lactate. But, you know, metaphorically, I've drunk a lot of Molina milk. Milkalina.
It's pretty. Stand far off.
Every time that happens, I stand a bit further.
Bump, grab like that.
Oh, yeah.
Traditionally, Stefano and Trinculo have always been a kind of double act. On this movie, you know, Russell and I have sort of become chums, and we sort of find ourselves colluding with each other.
We were trying very hard to appear like a normal comedy double act. I've a good chemistry with him that might go beyond an on-screen double act and hopefully into an off-screen sexual marriage.
Give me the line one more time.
And you can put some noise on it.
Oh, we definitely put the noise on.
I can do my noise.
Okay, go on. Are you ready?
Yeah, that's good. Thanks. So yeah,
Felicity was somebody who Julie picked out from a still photograph from many, many actresses. She said, I love the way she looks. I hope she can act.
Wherefore weep you?
At mine unworthiness, which dare not offer. What I desire to give and much less take. What I shall die to want.
Cut!
Woo!
Shakespeare has, I think, tried to personify that thing you have when you're really young, that complete naivety, but not in an annoying way, in a way that is quite sad, is that as we get older, it gets lost.
You know, she's incredibly beautiful, but she's also extremely clever. And, you know, you need that to a certain extent with Shakespeare because the language can be quite complex.
When I suddenly realised that I would be attempting to do Shakespeare on screen with Helen Mirren. Right, okay. Where do I start?
What is it? A spirit?
No, child.
Julie actually found me as a musician, so that's how I got into this. It wasn't from acting at all, so I hadn't really, it wasn't part of my plan to become an actor, actually.
I saw him perform with his band, Carney. He had this most extraordinary princely feel about him. There's a refined elegance, vulnerability, rocker, masculine, feminine, that just felt so right for Ferdinand.
I studied a little in high school, but I definitely never performed Shakespeare, let alone really any form of acting.
And he came and auditioned next to some very famous people who, if I say their names, people are going, oh my God, you didn't pick. I didn't, because he gave the best audition.
I felt sort of guilty on one end, getting this part as Ferdinand. There's so many actors who would have probably killed to get a part like this, and I didn't have to kill anyone to get it, so that was kind of nice.
What was great about his audition was he believed in love at first sight.
My prime request, which I do last pronounce, is you wonder if you'd be made or no.
You could see it in his face, in his eyes, that there was no cynicism there. And it's very hard for people in their late teens or early 20s to think about that kind of love that you would die for.
But you, oh you, so perfect and so peerless, are created of every creature's best.
And his acting was incredibly natural. It wasn't artificial. He wasn't frightened of it. He made the Shakespeare sound like contemporary language.
I see Ferdinand as someone who is determined and gentle at the same time. I don't see him as a weak person, but at the same time, he has that soft side that is able to allow Miranda in and fully fall in love. Just, it's been very natural. It's almost like a brother-sister, it's a sibling sort of relationship that we have.
Oh, is that, you sound like the,
Which hopefully translates into a romantic relationship on the screen. I'm assuming that sometimes it can get all mixed up, co-stars falling for one another, but not that she wouldn't be an easy girl to fall for, but in this situation, it was very comfortable, and I don't think either one of us felt uncomfortable at any time with any of the things we had to do.
Thou thinks there is no more such shapes as he, having seen but him and Caliban.
Her mum's trying to say, you know, there are loads of guys around, but obviously, if it's the first one you've ever seen, you might be more inclined to falling in love with him, which she does.
I'm almost embarrassed to say it, but I had never read The Tempest, so when I found out that Prospero was originally a man, I was actually quite disappointed.
A mother's love is very different than a father's love. Yes, Prospero is very protective of his daughter, but when Ferdinand comes, there's a little bit of that daddy competition thing with the young prince coming to take his 16-year-old daughter. It's not about competition with Prospera. It's about truly testing Ferdinand to see if he is worthy of her.
Dishonor undergo while I sit lazy by.
No, don't back up, just let her. As well as it does you, and I would do it much more ease. For my goodwill is to it, and yours is against.
Where are you going?
I don't know.
When we were trying to find a place for the two lovers, Miranda and Ferdinand, to have their real love moment, what we found was a gorge, an incredible red, beautiful sunset gorge.
To it, and yours it is against.
It was the essence of what was going on there, that they just can't get, there's nowhere else they can go but to each other.
Poor worm, thou art infected. This visitation shows it.
And that's how she sees the two lovers, her daughter down there, that she's infected with love. You know, Shakespeare can be cynical about love, but he can create characters that are completely non-cynical about it.
Oh, mistress mine, where are you roaming?
Because Reeve was such a great singer, I thought, oh, can't we have a love song? So we took a song from Twelfth Night.
Oh, Mistress Mine was originally used as sort of an older guy ogling a younger lady. A dirty old man song, basically. In this, the same exact lyrics take on a whole different hue. He's singing about the ephemeral quality of time, and we don't have much time. It comes across as a seduction, but a teenage seduction. I saw her standing there. It's a very famous Beatles song. She was just 17, and you know what I mean. You know, it's okay if it's a 19-year-old singing that, but if it's a 65-year-old person singing, she's just 17. Oh man, it's a different thing. So you can see how one lyric can take on another hue depending on the situation that he's in.
That was great.
Action! And Tom! And Chris! And Alan! And David!
Great, it's a bit of fun. Gosh, it really does look like we're walking forward, yeah.
For me, it was an interesting challenge because Julie isn't setting the film in any particular period, but she did have a sort of few specific requests. Julie's reference for the Milan court was Velázquez and Goya and that darkness. And the look then, the Spanish fashion of the time, actually influenced the rest of Europe. I mean, it was very dark, very black, very somber, intimidating, if you like. And the only decoration really is very linear, and usually in gold or silver braid. The other side of Julie's brief was that although Velázquez was an inspiration, we weren't setting it in the 17th century. It was somewhere now. It was contemporary. It had to have a modern feel. The beauty of what Sandy did was she used zippers, silver zippers as all of the details. It just came to me that it would provide a really good way of doing decoration. Strong, yet still look like a period costume. We entirely bought out a store in the East End of London. Well, I mean, there must be miles of zippers involved.
Sandy Powell is a tremendous artist. She does these costumes. Much as they are beautiful, they're kind of hellish to wear.
And then I had a bit of a panic about the weather because we got here and of course it's hot.
I became like some character of a Jane Austen novel. I had a kind of an umbrella and it really was hot because we're on all this volcanic, you know, there was no shade and to be wearing black, tweedy black leather. Yeah, that was the worst thing about it. It was kind of weird though because it's not a big budget film, but we were shooting in Hawaii and we were staying in a Four Seasons.
We're working, honestly, we're discussing
how to get into character.
We're discussing the verse.
Yeah.
But you know, it wasn't too bad.
Even a couple of the times it was cool and they kept doing it.
Catch you before you went out.
What?
The shoes. I think we can get away with that.
It's a great group of the four of us because they're all so very different and the characters are all so very different.
It was great to get Chris Cooper and David Strathairn. David has done Shakespeare, but Chris did it because he'd never done it.
When we talked to Chris at first, he was, you know, you sure you want me? My British accent isn't really, you know, isn't really up there. And Julie said, absolutely, I believe you can do it. And kind of talked Chris into it.
I freaked out when I heard that he was going to play Antonio. It doesn't even feel like acting when you're with someone who's just there and fascinating and he's such a sweetheart as well, kind of shy but I just love to make him laugh. You know, he's one of these people that when you get a laugh out of him, you feel like, whoa, he laughed.
Welcome, audience. Here we are, Ironwood Forest, scene 33, 20 shots behind, battling with the weather, usual things. This is where the Sebastian and Antonio plot to kill the king.
Prosper allows the nature of these characters to come out.
My brother Sebastian is vulnerable to lots of influence and he falls under Antonio's spell.
I think of this as a tango. There is a masculine and a feminine, but it's...
And yet methinks I see it in thy face what thou shouldst be.
That it has a bit of a... just in rhythm.
To perform an act whereof what's past is prologue, what to come in yours and my discharge.
With a lot of plot lines in Shakespeare, all of a sudden, you just suddenly think, oh, I'm going to kill my brother. And you know, there's no real build-up. It's like in Richard III in that scene where he's just killed this woman's children and then within about 2 pages she's going to marry him. And yet you buy it. So what I tried to do is make Sebastian a bit dim, the slightly dimmer brother.
What stuff is this? How say you? Say this were death that now hath seized them.
I kind of sort of thought of him as Prince Andrew. And with David being Prince Charles. Because you can't really play evil all the way through. And also, I mean, you kind of, look, I'm kind of already a little, you know, arch. Hello.
What Shakespeare does so beautifully is he mirrors that conspiracy with another clown conspiracy where Caliban tells them that they can become the leaders and the king of this island if they'll only kill Prospera.
Surely every fertile inch of the island, and I will kiss thy foot. I pray thee, be my God.
Come on, then. That's when you see his pure nature, you know, he's like that little innocent child who would team up with anybody to just, you know, get his island back.
I'll take you here, and I'll dig you. This is where the Buto thing can come in really well. Where I'll dig the young pignets, and we see his physicality. You marvel at his physicality. We always think of movies as very naturalistic, but we are doing Shakespeare, which is heightened language. So there's possibility, like when you were moving the other day, you know, and I was saying,
like a giraffe, you're all tottering and top heavy. Sort of little tiny feet with too much weight near the top.
if it comes from a source of fear, and you just push it and extend it and multiply it, you can make it work.
But this puppy-headed monster, he just goes crazy, all right? And you go from being all light and playful, and then suddenly it's menacing. It's horrible. It's because it's like it lures you into thinking, oh, this is someone you can just take the piss with, and he's just like a little kid. And then it's like, oh, no. It's not very nice.
What happens to your face when you do that? An incredible mask. Jaimin studied Buto with Master Oguri in L.A. Buto is a powerful and shocking contemporary Japanese dance form that has an appreciation for the grotesque in nature. It's like a curse, isn't it? You come in him, thou pied ninny thou, and you do that thing, and he's like, what the fuck is that? What is that? And then you could, poor monster, you know, it's monstrous, but then you could actually break out of it. That's the fun part. That's where you can make it, which is.
What are you doing vocally at that sound?
I'm doing voice like Caliban.
Oh,
Yep. You see how he mocks me? No, how he mocks me.
Kill you now.
Yeah, right. You want to do a Neapolitan, an Italian accent?
I'd like that very much.
Go ahead. Do your low-life Italian accent.
I will.
Instantly.
But, you know, I suppose it's a little bit slimy, a little bit disgusting, but also a sense of beauty and awareness of good things, but more rat-like and more disgusting. It's more Greek.
This is really a location that originally we were going to have them walking through the water, but unfortunately the water turned out to be 27 times the legal limit for bacteria.
It's gorgeous. Delicious here. I shall come here for my holidays.
We've got a little pool here full of fresh water that we can have Trinculo falling into.
We're just standing in.
Well, you know, ADs are expendable. And we're about 2 hours behind.
You didn't mention this in our first meeting. One.
What's Ariel?
You forgot your words. Bang 'em and hang 'em.
Bang 'em and hang 'em. Hang 'em and bang 'em. Vote is free.
Confuse and abuse them. That's one of my actual policies.
Flay 'em and spray 'em.
Fly 'em and fly 'em. Fly 'em and fly 'em. Vote is free. What does this say? Thou beest a man, show thyself.
Caliban, although he's earthbound, his language is very, very, very poetic. The isle is full of noises. This is his famous aria of words.
Sounds and sweet airs that give delight and hurt not.
The music is also additional landscape on the movie.
The underscoring really is coming from the ideas of the island.
To achieve that, we used various instruments, shakuhachi, Japanese flute, recorded in such a way that air and music are inseparable. The whole thing was to be an unusual tapestry where you can't put your finger on it or define it as a particular type of music.
At a certain point, and I think it's the most beautiful point in The Tempest, Prospero asks Ariel how fares the king and his followers. And Ariel says that they are made mad, and if she could see them herself, she would feel compassion for them.
Your charm so strongly works them, that if you now beheld them, your affections would become tender.
Dost thou think so, Spirit?
Mine would, master. Were I human?
That's like one of the turning points. And even in the film, it's the one moment where I allowed the actor to be physical, where he's not transparent, where he's actually almost human there with Prospera. And she recognizes that her vengeance and her dark powers have taken her one step beyond where she should be.
Ye elves of hills, brooks, standing lakes and groves.
One of the great speeches, Ye elves of hills, she talks about how she's conjured all of this magic and now she's going to release it.
You demi-puppets that by moonshine do the green sour ringlets make.
It is actually a direct ripoff, almost plagiarism, but Shakespeare was the best at this, of Ovid's Metamorphoses, and those words came out of the witch Medea's mouth. Now, that was pretty astounding, that it actually, the words were originally coming from a sorceress.
3, 2, 1.
And in this beautiful story, which is very contemporary, it's about compassion and forgiveness. Not just revenge, which we all love in the movies and we all love in the theater, but at a certain point, it's also about giving up that power and understanding that there's a certain point where we become transgressors, where we've gone too far and we've allowed it to eat ourselves. And we know that the cycle of violence and vengeance just continues and continues and continues.
To the dread rattling thunder have I given fire, and rifted Jove's stout oak with his own bolt.
In articulating these speeches and therefore having to think them through, you know, you do go through a sort of religious experience. You know, they are so deep and so beautiful. The language of the play tends to pull you into a kind of a poetic speaking which really doesn't work for film. I think that's always the struggle with Shakespeare on film, to make it sound relevant and naturalistic and modern, but not to betray the language.
But this rough magic I here abjure.
When she gets dressed in her costume from the Milan court, from the past, it had to be really strikingly different. It had to really show the difference in her life back then to her life now on the island, showing the restrictions and the constrictions of wearing corsetry.
This is called my bondage Cinderella.
Yes.
Right. You want to get the torture chamber on.
The image that Julie had early on of Ariel tightening the bodice, the clothes alone are like a prison.
We should see it actually, the last pull in.
They'll have to use the real laces for that. That means you'll actually have to see someone behind me.
Yeah, you can
I could act it, yes. I'll have to act.
Behold, the wronged Duchess of Milan, Prospera. I bid a hearty welcome.
Okay, camera's cut.
Camera cut.
Very hearty welcome. Okay.
So through this interchange with Ariel, she understands that it is time for her to release her enemies because they've been punished, and she releases her power at the same time.
I'll break my staff, bury it certain fathoms in the earth, and deeper than did ever plummet sound, I'll drown my book.
The last speech of Prospera is usually done to the audience, and I had cut it from the screenplay because I thought, oh, what is she going to do, just speak to the camera and say all of that? We've already heard her. But when I came to the end of the edit, and it all ended just with this breaking of the staff and throwing her books into the water, I felt it wasn't complete.
And Julie was very adamant, you know, you thought your work was done, go back to work. I want this last speech to be composed as a song. It was never intended to be a song by Shakespeare.
So Eliot took that beautiful speech, now my charms are all o'erthrown, and what strength I has mine own, which is most faint. And he set it to music.
I thought, what artist? Until I thought of Beth Gibbons. Her work with Portishead is incredibly famous, but the sound of her voice had this timeless, ageless quality of vulnerability, and Beth's low register is just gorgeous.
So it became a 7-minute long end titles piece, and it really rounds out and completes the movie.
Consider Shakespeare was fashioning possibly his last play. He knew that he was going to leave the stage as an actor, and at the end, he steps out, Shakespeare. He recites an apology, basically. Forgive me if I didn't entertain. With your applause, fill my sails with a breeze, I'll be set free. The most important word in that final speech is the word free. It's repeated a number of times. And if you think about the whole play, the most important word is free.
My Ariel, chick, that is thy charge. Then to the elements be free.
Freedom! Heide! Heide! Freedom! Freedom! Heide! Heide! Freedom! Heide! Freedom! Freedom! Freedom!
This has been an extraordinary experience through the rain, the fire, the wind, the mud. It's been an amazing experience for all of us. It's all there, which is, even through all the rock and roll, it's all there.
We've been working as a team. Everybody has had to make their sacrifices, and everybody has kind of had to do things at difficult circumstances. But they have all been troopers. They all have come through. I put my hats off to the crew, the talent, everybody on this production.
I think it is the most extraordinary cast I've ever had. You get the high and the low, the sacred and the profane, all smattered and colliding together.
Extraordinarily accomplished actors in, often, sometimes playing quite small roles.
You end up with a cast of actors who really want to be here, who really want to be right here, right now, doing this. And that creates its own kind of wonderful energy.
And they all happen to be really nice people.
Julie said, we're all going to be on an island together. Let's cast, number one, the best actors for the role. Number two, people you'd want to spend time with on an island.
I think it's a testament very much to the material at hand. But I also think it's a great testament to the trust and respect that people have for Julie Taymor and for her work and how she works. I don't think you get casts together like this without there being some kind of desire on their part to be here, to do it,
She has a very powerful imagination, and this play of all the plays allows that imagination to go wherever you want it to go.
She's got a great way of turning what might seem on paper as a kind of rather intellectual idea into a very exciting visual thing that just opens up the story,
For a person in my job, it's exhilarating to be at the forefront of the telling of the story. It feels like being an artist working with her, and I like it.
Your hair is shorter.
No, it's
exact same length.
It's exactly the same length as when we started.
Tensions grew high on set when Julie Taymor's fastidious observation of continuity spilled into tyranny.
These people.
It's really interesting working with a director who's also a designer. And particularly knowing that Julie's background is theatre, it meant that I was allowed to sort of push the boundaries a little. And I think that's what she was expecting of me, was to sort of go a little bit further than you would do if you were just designing costumes for a film or a period film. So, I mean, really, it was a fantastic opportunity to be, given that freedom to go as far as I think I could go.
The experience of doing it has been huge, huge.
You can always tell when a director really loves the material.
And so that, feels great when you're working with somebody who really has such an understanding of every aspect of what you're working on. There aren't too many people who really, challenge themselves at taking on a Shakespearean piece.
This combination of styles, this combination of elements. In Shakespeare's plays, particularly in this one, there was never any fear of combining all those things.
He was dark, he was funny, he's forever contemporary, he's more daring than most writers, he's outrageous and he's deep. There's nothing better.
What makes him so brilliant, I think, is that if you look, you always find yourself there.
It's always exciting to be working on a project that you think is trying to achieve something different, rather than the same boring, formulaic stuff that is churned out year after year.
And hopefully, bring these incredible plays to yet another generation.
We don't actually have the vocabulary, the way of speaking that is quite as visually rich and lush and full of emotion.
We are such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded with a sleep.
And that is a wrap for today. Thank you very much.
My God!
Well done.